everybody. Oh, yeah, we back again. It's your man, King A.D.S. Your bro, I'm with you here in the physical, in the spiritual, in the ethereal. Let's do it all with this original raw material because you know how we like to get down, and that's all about connecting and sharing interesting things, points of discussion. Maybe hopefully it'll spark some discussion in your own circle or amongst friends, or even if you're alone, maybe to look into something new that you haven't already looked into. I see so many people out here getting sparked, though. I love to get the brain sparked. And, even in some of the older scriptures, and not scriptures, but like a lot of the older information, as you start to go through all the bits and pieces of it and put it together, you start noticing that one of the things that is expected of us as these beings, humans, or are we spiritual beings having a human experience, nevertheless, is to get sparked all the time. Because the correlation is the more you realize you're getting sparked, the more the connection is had. So you can see the magic happening behind the curtain and you're making the connection. Oh, yeah. And that's what we like. And also, wanted to give big shouts out to everybody that's on the mission and that's been tuning in and everything. I really appreciate you. And, I wanted to say, no matter what, some people will doubt you. Some people will try to steer you away from what's happening right in front of you. Some people would like to see you downfall, right? Like they like to see you fail. Some people want to use you as amusement and entertainment to point the finger and laugh. And, you know, and I think about that because recently I did a video and I was a little bit concerned about how it would be received and about the delivery that I had. So I did another video following that with kind of an apology. I felt like I made some mistakes. And that would be the moment where if there are doubters and naysayers, they're pointing a finger at you saying, ah, ha, 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 see, you didn't get it right. The sweetest time that anyone can have in that moment is not only to take control of that moment if you've made an error, to self-correct and to get back on the path, to find the right energy and the right path, but also when you find out that your brain's still working, baby. Oh, yeah. So, kick rocks to the haters. If there's the haters, kick rocks. You know what I'm saying? Nice try. Tough, but you know what I mean? Tough business there. You know what I mean? Because it turns out that as I go back into the topic and study things a little bit more in the relation between the diversity of places and who was visiting, it does turn out that yes, I was accurate. That we had these types of integrations. My timeline was messed up though. And that's I knew it felt so weird and I felt so bad. It felt so bad about that I was gonna make another video to announce me pulling that video out. You know what I mean? But the era that I would be speaking of would be the era that was prior to the rule of the African Emperor Mansa Musa, who had one of the richest kingdoms of all of history and flooded the economy, the world economy, mind you. So just listen to that alone, the world economy with gold, and devalued the whole world economy at that time because we just had so many resources. And that also attracted a lot of unwanted attention. And that's, following that prior year, I mean, not prior, but, following that, preceding that, you have not preceding that. Why do I keep doing that right now? I don't understand. Something always has to go funky, right? But anyway, I'm human. There you go, not AI. But nevertheless, following that, that's where you have like the Atlantic slave trades and things like that were taking place after that. Obviously, from turning the attention to these lands that has so many resources and riches and valuable things and resources. So yeah, it kind of turned some unwanted attention. And but you have prior to Mansa Musa, it was believed and said and documented that there was some people, out there exploring, and they had boats and ships and freighters and all those kinds of things that you would come to think, that you hear about in history. But they also had them, and they were going down around our coastline, and where you have a current there that can travel in different directions, and one of those directions will take you up into the Gulf area, into like Mesoamerica over there. So, and that took place in I believe in the late 1300s, all the way up into like somewhere around the 1700s, if I'm correct. So like easily 400 years easily. And we're doing a lot of trade with the local indigenous people there, whether that was the predecessor of the Aztecs, or I can't see, my order will be a little bit messed up though, guys, so bear with me. But nevertheless, doing trade and forming relationships and forming unions with the local population. And then later having, and then skipping forward just to cover the points that were in my that prior video, and because it was supposed to be so inclusive, and I wanted it to be received that way. And that yes, those heads, those carved heads, did indeed come from those trips. Now, the confusion that made me gaslight myself, so also be careful not to gaslight yourself. And that's why it's always important to stay sharp on what you know and what you learn, because there's a time that, someone comes along and can just jolt you off your center. You will second guess what you've learned and know. But there was something that they tried to debunk that with some sort of they found like some DNA testing that they did. But all that would really prove, because you can split hairs all you want, but that's not really saying much. All it's saying is that the indigenous people of that localized area would have this genotype, this phenotype, or whatever you want to call that, blood type. So I don't really see that as a pure debunking type of remedy to any of the history and documented things that took place, as well as the headdresses that were clearly molded from African culture, especially the features. There were no undeniably unmistaken features, but we also have a lot of interesting travelings, so gene mixtures all throughout the was it, what was the other, like Jamaica, all the islands all over there, Brazil, right? Like there's a lot of documentation there too. But it's just, so there was a lot of things taking place, and people trading information and living habits and all kinds of great things, man. And so you can see later, and yes, it was the Mayans that invade, after they have a break off. First they integrate, right, into the population, and it seems, they're just doing their thing, right? And then seems to be what it seems like, I'll just say it like that, it seems to be a break off, right? And then when the conquistadors came, when the people from Spain came, they sided with them. So there you go. There's something that makes everybody cry, right? Like there's always in everyone's history, I mean, probably even our own lives, right? Like there's always someone who kind of let you down or sold you out or something, right? It's like, damn, man, come on. We was all about to be getting it, but yeah, so it seems that what they did was, in hopes to wipe out another tribe, basically, they sided with these guys. But as you know, when someone has ill intentions, it never stops there. They just use whatever method they can use to get in. So where one side will paint the picture, okay, where one side will paint it in victory and triumph and great things, the other side of the story will have it as oppression and the inflicting of genocide upon their people and things, and wreaking havoc upon their world. So the histories that we can learn can be quite distorted, and of course, because for control, or for obedience, to go along with the system, people would have to indoctrinate themselves into a certain way of thinking, which, hey, we're number one, right? So like, it's like playing for your own team. It's like playing for any team. You're rooting for your team. All this kind of stuff's kind of like the same kind of, root, kind of the same pod, right? But yeah, but anyway, you have all these things going on, all these changes that take place. So it's a lot more dynamic than people would ever think. And yeah, people are mixed in there. I would guess if people could only document like 400 years or so, like I would think that it probably taking place longer. You know what I'm saying? Probably closer to 1,000 years. You know what I mean? Probably up to the 100%, something up there. You know what I mean? Like. But yeah, just fascinating stuff. That's what I mean by our stories being fascinating. And you can see where the correlation of what I was mentioning, and now I'll say it this way this time, that it's more of a hunch that I put together from all the evidence, I can see the symbolism of the builders being the beetle, and then knowing that there was contact and trade, right, and all these different things and relationships, and then having the invaders come, which were coming off of a whiff of the previous kingdoms that I expressed, right? So, like, they're following the same trail almost. And lo and behold, wouldn't you know it, not only did they want to start enslaving them Africans and anybody else that knew us along those people along the way, they also um, 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 took the symbolism of them and tried to turn it around, right? So when you indoctrinate into the new system, they want you to get rid of that, your native tongue, your native dress, your native religions, your practices, and all your symbolisms, right? They want you to get rid of that stuff, and or they'll kill you, right, and stuff like that, or they'll banish you or kill you, just straight out, or erase you, I should say. Oh, there you go, because I don't know how this thing likes to pick up on words, but nevertheless, yeah. So they'll switch that stuff around, and you just gotta think about how many things are just so convoluted, right? Like, even though you can have a group of people saying that they stand for justice and good, they're doing a lot of harm in that way. So there definitely would have to be more. There's way more to that. I definitely do know there's way more to that, and I'm sure some of you do too. But like, that would be like a whole nother session to dive into some of those things. But it's a false representation of whatever was coming across at the time. And now that everybody's starting to wake up and they're starting to see this stuff, and yeah, but it's pretty much, if it's too good to be true, probably is, right? And if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, it's probably most likely a duck. And that's what we're learning. You know what I'm saying? Take the long way around the pond for something very direct. Very simple, short, and direct. But here we are, nevertheless, and it's a good time because everyone's starting to come around, and the constant always is going to be change. And you could see all that lovely integration that was taking place throughout all these gene pools and everything. And it's just amazing. And I know it can be a bit confusing because as you have these conquering breakoffs, and the victor dictates the story of history from that moment on. They just paste over anything else that was there. But like I said, these, whoever, individuals themselves, not a whole group, but people have choices to make in this world. We all have choices to make. We know what's light, what's the dark, right? Good and evil. It's up to us to make that decision the right way for the right reasons, or else we're not learning anything in this school. And obviously, some of us some people choose the path of darkness, right? Of service to self, and it will use anything to do that. And so it's very dangerous and can be deceptive. And so basically, like I said before, yeah, it does. But the hunch would be, yeah, to take that symbol from Ma'at and then change it into the other derogatory term that people know today. And it just doesn't seem to make sense, right? It doesn't make sense. Why would you call someone a beetle? You know what I mean? It just doesn't make sense. But now it does. It makes a lot more sense. That's the hunch that I have, the connection that I make between that. And why would they tell you to use it as a toy? It was an old toy. That's what if you look it up, you'll find out that people used to tie strings around it to use nature, a creation, a living thing, as entertainment, toy. Mm, just doesn't sit right with you, right? It doesn't resonate. And doesn't resonate with the natural connection that we have with everything. So yeah, man, I would just wanted to touch on that again because I just felt awful. You know what I'm saying? I felt awful. I was so ready to just take that video down, even because I just felt like maybe it was sending out the people can misinterpret it or whatever. But no, it was my brain was still working, but my order was was out of order. There you go. And but I had to revisit some things, and some things popped up in the right timing, which was strange too, a bit serendipitous in that. I like that word, and lining up with the path of what would be good for you in your best interest at the right time, right place, right time kind of thing. And some of that happened as well that like brushed me up, and I said, oh my God, I thought I was going crazy. And I literally gaslit myself. So be sure that you don't gaslight yourself, because sometimes things can be questionable and you have to read between the lines, but you also have to do the research, like, for more substance. And there's still more substance that I have to revisit. There's so many different time periods of every area in this world that are so full of information, practices, everything, and the things that were happening at the moment. But yes, just wanted to touch on that. So, nope, my brain still works. I'm happy to say that. I tried to clear up the order of the way those things happen a little bit more. But yeah, our story is fascinating. And the one thing that always happens is change. Change, 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 constant change, right? And that's the law, that's the way of the universe, that's the way of what we live in, you know what I'm saying? And so I see no difference of why things won't change. But just, man, just to know that all of us here are so much more connected than what we think, you know what I'm saying? And that we're beautiful, you know, it's a beautiful thing. So, you know, if we take up the wrong coat of arms, you know, we generally just killing off generations of our extended immediate families that or extended families that we have no idea about, you know what I mean? And I think it's better in our interest to learn about that and to maybe adopt some things that are useful from each other, right? As we have, you know, and that seems to have been working all right. And if we keep doing that, maybe we don't have to be so dependent on thinking that we need somebody to figure out machines to do what we do naturally the best, and that's connect, and that's get things done, build and make a beautiful place and make beautiful things and be one with nature, and you know, actually having the answer from the substance that it takes to from connection, you know what I mean? So make that connection. If you made a connection with me right now, smash that like button. It's free and it helps me out a lot. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh yeah, because you know how we do, because now I sound like the rest of them. I just go sprinkle that stuff out there for everybody. And with that, man, much love, much unity. Let's get it going out here. All my positive forward thinking people, truth seeking, finding truth, digging, doing the work, and it's all worth it, man. I'm right with you, and let's keep it going. I'm about to get right back into these mixes yet again. All right, y'all, much love, peace.